Hello and welcome to View from the Sideline podcast. It's Chris here and Liam's back with us. Hello, Liam.
Hi Chris, how you doing?
Not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, nice. Enjoying some time at home?
Yeah, we certainly are. It's been a while since we have done a podcast, but we thought we'd take some time out today to come back with one. Obviously, with the outbreak of the coronavirus, it has halted a lot of things around the world, and one of that is being football. And as we are a football podcast, we thought we'd come in and share our views on what is happening in the world of football at the moment. You know, albeit not a lot of results, but obviously there's so much to talk about, isn't there, at the moment?
Yeah, a lot of the future of football is a little bit up in the air at the minute.
Yeah, very uncertain times at the moment. So we are going to go through a few things that obviously we've obviously both got our own views on. But yeah, so we'll get started, and obviously we'll start with our home league, which is the Premier League. Obviously, they originally took a break until I think it was the 3rd of April. Was that right? And now it's been extended until the end of April. But with the way I think that it's happening at the moment, I personally cannot see that we are going to get to see much football, I don't think, before June, maybe even July, which obviously leads to the very big question of what is actually going to happen to this season. Liam, what actually do you think is going to happen?
Well, it looks like they have given the possibility that the season could be extended into June. I think the rules stated before it had to be finished before June. I think now they've stopped
That's
that
right,
rule.
yeah.
So it's looking like at the moment they want to get it done in summer. Whether they'll be able to do that or not, I don't know. It's going to be obviously down to how everything spreads and everything works out. Personally, I don't think we're going to. I'm looking at people that I know that have been told, they've got to stay indoors for 12 weeks minimum, and I'm thinking, well, 12 weeks takes us to June as it is, so I think that's the best estimate at the moment of when things are going to start getting back to normal. I think we're looking at finishing maybe this season when next season is meant to start. I think it's going to push back completely on next season. I think we're going to end up maybe ending this season more towards Christmas than at the end of the summer. Obviously, the Euros has been cancelled, which might help give a little bit of game time if we do manage to get out in July. Players will be available for it, but I can't see it personally ending much before the end of this year.
So I did read earlier this week that they are, if they can get the games back in June, they're going to work around to get the games done within I think it was a 4 to 6 weeks period, which would probably mean each team playing like a weekend and then a weekday match. But where do you think that leaves fans? Do you feel that they will go down the road of making the games behind closed doors? Because personally, I feel at the moment I cannot see. Obviously, the gatherings have been completely squashed at the moment, so I just cannot see them allowing 40,000 people to be in one area this year.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think they're going to be playing it in front of full stadiums. When it got to the point where this started kicking off and people were saying that we can play games behind closed doors, that was when the pubs and the bars were open and still playing football. And if you're going to have a game on TV, people are still going to go to that. I think if they keep bars and pubs closed and play games behind closed doors, then you've got a chance of maybe doing things in summer. But I mean, it's going to make for a really interesting end. It's basically going to be a 10 game season, because I mean the title's basically decided. I think it's going to be the teams at the bottom and chasing for Europe that have got 10 games to make it. So it would be perfect to have full stadiums, because I think the atmosphere would be amazing. But I can't see it happening, and I can see public spaces being closed as well for playing the games on TV. I think a lot of it is going to be behind closed doors. What I would like to see, I don't know about you, Chris, I would like to see the season be extended into this summer, maybe have a 6-week period, but put the games on terrestrial TV. I'd like to see the Premier
Yeah.
League say that so that fans don't miss out, because I think with the games not being shown in pubs because they're closed and you not being able to go to the games, it's going to leave a lot of fans without being able to see football. So I would like to see more games on terrestrial TV.
Yeah, that's
I don't know whether that's a possibility.
No, yeah, obviously with obviously TV subscriptions like Sky and BT, obviously they've paid huge and vast amounts of money for these games, but I believe both have at the moment paused their sort of subscription service, so people aren't actually, spending money whilst there's actually no football or other sports on. But yeah, going back to your point about putting it on terrestrial, I think that's a really good idea. I think, like you said, if fans can't get to the game, if fans can't go to places like pubs to watch the football, then it would seem like a great idea for us to be able to actually watch it in our own homes whilst we can't. But obviously you've got the other issue of actually players who actually have contracted the virus. It's what happens there. If you've got a number of players out, I just can't see them starting the season until this is completely gone. And it's at the moment it's just so uncertain of how actually long this is actually going to go on for. Obviously you have Liverpool fans who are in a bit of a predicament at the
Absolutely.
moment. First, coming up to their first, pretty much they were about 3 or 4 games off winning the title, and then obviously this happens. You just got to feel like something is against you here, and I've seen people say, "Oh, they should void the season." I've got a couple of friends that have said that they think that they should void the season, but they are Man United fans, so
Take it with a pinch
I think
of salt.
it's a very sort of biased opinion here. You're gonna, all Liverpool fans are gonna want the season to continue because rightfully so. They were so far ahead anyway. But then you're going to have other fans like the Man United, like the Tottenham fans as well, who aren't doing as well, are saying to void the season. But for me, that just doesn't seem like a fair way of going about it, to be honest with you.
No, I don't think it is. I think, and as well, we've got to remember that we've got to have the same rule for the top 4 leagues, and what might be right for the Premier League of playing games behind closed doors, without fans going, it just isn't possible for teams in the lower divisions as well. So voiding the season might, still as it sounds, it might actually mean that the teams in League One and League Two survive.
Yeah.
But playing games behind closed doors, it means they're having to pay players, pay staff to be there, and maybe they can't afford to do it. I think it is a possibility to void the season. I think it is unfair to do that. But is there going to be a fair way out of this? I don't really think there is. Personally, I feel sorry for Liverpool if that does happen. I'm not one of those people that wants to deny them their first title for however many years, but I would obviously be extremely happy being a Villa fan and where we are at the minute as well. So maybe I am slightly biased.
This is what I was going to ask you. Obviously, there is another speculation going around that, or one of the theories that could possibly happen is that the table stands as it is. Now, obviously, for you as a Villa fan, that's not going to sit well with yourself, is it? Because obviously the situation you're in. It will probably benefit more the top 4, shall we say, top 4, top 5, than anyone else within the Premier League. So, thoughts on that one?
I can see the merits of doing that. What I would like to see, though, if they were going to start doing that and say, well, positions where you finished in the league now is final, I'd like to give the teams in the relegation a chance of surviving.
Survival.
I don't know
Yeah.
how that would happen. I don't know whether I don't think a playoff necessarily, like, I mean, they have it in Scotland and a lot of other countries where the teams that get relegated have a playoff against the teams at the top of the league below. I think that's then unfair on Leeds and West Brom at the minute, because effectively they should be getting promoted, and in any other season they probably would be. But then again, you can argue, well, they haven't completed the season either, so they've been given a shot at promotion, where in 10, 15 games time or whatever, they might not have had it. They might have gone on a bad run and not been there. So whether they can do that, I don't know. I don't think that would be the worst decision. In saying that happens, and just having a playoff at the end of the season, but it would be chaos. I think it would be absolute chaos if a team that was, say, level on points in 18th position and had a goal difference of just one worse than the team above them was forced into a relegation playoff. And especially if that team's got a game in hand as well, which I think some teams in the relegation zone have in various leagues.
Well, they do.
It's not fair. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what fair way they come out of this. Personally, I think that they have to finish the season in one form or another.
I think, I think that's right.
I'm not completely against it. Obviously, I would love to see everything voided and Villa stay up. But even if they do extend the season to the full 38 games at some point, one of the things I've been moaning about all season is that we've had players on long-term injuries. It'll give a chance for them to get back and get playing again. So likes of McGinn and Wesley and Tom Heaton and people like that. And it could be important for us, and it could mean that we survive. You just never know. But I think the full season has got to be played in some form.
So obviously carrying on from a full season theory, which I think is personally the correct way to go about this. I think no matter how long it takes for this to all sort of clear up, for the season to get restarted, one way I have thought about it is, say the season doesn't finish until start of next year, Christmas time this year. How about a half season for next season's competition? So next season's Premier League, they play each team once. I know it seems a bit unfair. Obviously, the home and away situation, that would have to be figured out. But do you think that's got any potential?
I think we're going to have to make some amendments to future years. I think it's going to have a knock-on effect for quite a while. I think potentially, yes, I think there could be a shorter season. I don't know whether playing teams once would be the way to go about it. I know, Chris, you're obviously a fan of Football Manager. There are abroad leagues. Well, I've been playing in Belgium recently, where halfway through the season, the league gets split into two.
And then you lose half your points.
You lose half your points, but it can mean you can edit that to a shorter season or a longer season, whichever way you want to do it. Whether, you play everybody once, but then if you finish in the top half, you play the top half teams twice. Or the bottom half teams twice if you're in the bottom half. I think there could be a way that we could do that to make it a little bit fairer.
Because the only way I can see, obviously, if we go down the theory that the season doesn't finish until the end of the year, that potentially playing playing the full allocated games to the 38 games, but playing twice a week, but maybe scrapping the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup is also another way. And this is going to seem bad on the teams, the lower league teams, but that's probably going to happen, I think, next season anyway. I think they'll probably scrap the two league sort of cups. I
think the League Cup and
the league.
Yeah, the League One, League Two. I don't know what it's called now. I think they could both go. I think maybe you keep the FA Cup, but maybe I don't know whether you can have. Obviously, you're going to have the same amount of teams entering, but maybe the Premier League teams don't come in until the 4th, 5th round, or something like that. Maybe give them an extra round to recover, so it's one less game for them to play. I think the League Cup is in trouble next year. I don't think it'll be played.
Because I think they've thought about anyway of getting rid of it.
And it's worked well in France. France have done
Yeah,
it.
France
Have
don't
got
do
rid of their
it.
League Cup.
Yeah, it it's good for the out of the top 6 teams in the Premier League. It's a good way in for Europe for the other smaller teams. But then you look back on the previous winners in the last 10 years, you'll probably find 8 out of 10 of the last winners have been the so-called one of the top 6 teams. So yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting. Have you got any other things that you might think that they could possibly do to?
Well, it's sort of similar to what you were saying. So my
Yeah,
completely outside the box idea is in order to finish this season, you maybe keep the amount of games that have been played at the minute. So I think teams are on 28 or 29 games, and then you divide the league into like 4 little groups of 5 teams, and they effectively play off of those 5 positions.
right. Okay.
So I
Yeah,
think you keep your points. So it's fair on Liverpool because they've gained those points and they're going to keep them. And then I think if you play the 5 teams that are around you, if you finish bottom of your little group of 5, you play the top team from the group below you, and then whoever wins that game will take that position. So at the minute, say Man United are in 5th, if they were to finish bottom of that top group of 5, they'd play Wolves. And if Wolves were to win, they would finish 5th, Man United would finish
yeah,
6th. And I think that would be a fair way because it would give the teams at the bottom a chance. They can survive. So obviously, West Ham, Watford, Bournemouth, Villa, Norwich could all play each other. And I mean, if you wanted to play each other twice, I guess you could. But it would just be interesting, I think, to have a mini league of 5 teams. It's sort of like a playoff. It would end the season probably a little bit quicker, and it would maybe give people a chance to stay up where they can. And it would probably be fair on Liverpool because they've effectively won the title anyway.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, maybe it's slightly a complicated idea, but
No, it's
I just
definitely
thought it's something a little bit outside the box.
yeah, and it's something that they can definitely do. The only other crazy idea that I've thought about is just getting this season done, and maybe completely scrapping next season. I don't know, and
Yeah, it's. I mean,
because of
I don't think that's a crazy idea at all. I think if we're gonna go into Christmas, um, or the end of the year, maybe even the start of next year, I don't think this is the worst idea to do. And maybe you can start next season a bit earlier, and you can stretch it out so you're not so crowded with games over Christmas.
yeah,
Maybe you start the season in June or July, and then it would give teams a bit of a break,
well,
especially coming up to the World Cup in the winter. It might not be a bad idea.
well, we are going to have to unfortunately wait. It's going to be one of those where we have to just wait and see what is going to happen. But you know, I'm sure within the next sort of 6 to 10 weeks, we're going to find out what the plan of action is going to be. But obviously, it's not just affected the Premier League. Obviously, the other big European leagues around the country, obviously, all suspended at the moment. Obviously, La Liga have come out this week and said that they haven't even put a date on when they're actually going to be coming back. Suspended until further notice. So, yeah, it's world football at the moment. So we are just going to have to wait and see. But obviously, the lower league teams as well. I think we've already seen a lot of stories, this week and last week about clubs asking players and staff to take pay cuts in order, obviously, to keep things ticking over. Whilst obviously they're not being able to play games, obviously not being to make any money. So yeah, obviously Yeovil was one that came out today actually a few hours ago, and they've all taken a pay cut. But it is going to be those lower league teams that are really going to feel this, and it's not just lower league teams, championship teams as well. Obviously, you told me earlier, Liam, that obviously Birmingham are obviously one of these clubs as well.
Yeah, obviously they're an established championship club, and you'd expect them to be financially pretty stable. But it just goes to show how this is affecting all teams. And I think we've been on about extending the season, Chris, and I think it's quite interesting because most of the players in League One and League Two are normally on a 1-year contract, and it normally ends at the end of June. So I don't know if if the season was to go into July or August, I'm not quite sure what would happen, or whether they'd have a squad that they could they could finish the season with, because all their players would be out of contract.
Yeah, for these teams, sort of just talking sort of National League at the moment, obviously, because obviously Yeovil's one of the teams that I follow. For a team like Yeovil, it is essential that this season gets finished, just because they can pick up the revenue that they've lost through games. Obviously, they've not been able to play, and they're obviously in a really good position in fourth at the moment as well. So,
how much did you say it was that they stood to lose, Chris? You did tell me.
Well, they're saying estimated around about £400,000-500,000.
That's a lot for a National League side. That is.
It's a big, and obviously this isn't just Yeovil. This is going to be around the whole country for these teams as well. I don't know if you saw last week, Barnet laid off every member of staff other than playing staff.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think we are probably going to see more of this.
So I know that there's a rule in football, because it came about. I was looking into it when Bury went bust at the start of this season. There's a rule that if you are obviously if you're a football team and you're financially fine, say you're Man United or Chelsea or whatever, you still can't help out lower league teams. So even if, say, Manchester United thought, oh well, it's actually good for the city of Manchester and the local area to have Bury as a football club, they couldn't help them out. Do you think? I personally think that that's not a good rule in certain circumstances. I see why they've got it, but I think there's got to be circumstances where teams are crying out for financial help, especially in times like this. Do you think that's something that they should relax a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that should be lifted, because it is, although the Premier League teams aren't playing games, they are still probably selling a lot of merchandise and things like that. So yeah, I think it would be only fair for them to help out, the lower league. How much they can do that, I don't personally know, but it is gonna, it's gonna take a lot of time for these teams outside of the Premier League to sort of recoup the money that they've lost. I know that there probably is going to be some sort of government help, I would have thought, around this. I'm not sure. Obviously, they've said on the news that there is going to be support for, businesses around the UK. So whether that applies to football clubs, I'm not sure. I would have thought so if they're,
I hope so.
If they're, if they're trading companies, which probably most of them are, I would have thought that's right. I'm not sure, but. Yeah, I think it's the last thing we want to see now is teams having to drop out of leagues because of this. Obviously, we've already seen it once this season with Bury, and almost with Bolton as well. But the last thing that football needs now is other clubs to go under. It just wouldn't be good.
And I think it's better for. I mean, you look at the amount of cities that have got a Premier League team and maybe a team in League One or League Two, and I think it. Personally, I mean, obviously, I'm an Aston Villa fan. There's a lot of teams in and around the Birmingham area, and I think it makes football much more interesting and much more competitive when teams in and around your city are being competitive as well. So I think it's better for Villa because local kids are getting brought up by all these academies that are in the area. Villa are going to have a better pool of talent because kids are going to be more interested in football because there's more teams to choose from. And I think it's better for them if you, let's say Walsall, for example, I think they're in League Two at the minute. If they're doing better, it means that they've got their youngsters that are coming through and doing well, along with Birmingham, West Brom, Wolves, Villa. It gives more encouragement for the young players to come through. So I think it would be sad to see teams like that go. And I think they've got to somehow get together, the bigger clubs, and help these little league, well, not little, some of them, but the League One and League Two clubs out, because it's not fair.
No, it's going to be a difficult time for all of the clubs, I think, especially if you're outside of the Premier League. But again, it's not just going to be our country that's feeling this for especially the lower leagues. It'll be a worldwide problem. But for them, I think the main thing is to get the games on, as soon as they can. But even if they can get them on, like we said before, if they play it behind closed doors, then they're still not going to be making any money. The only way they're going to make money is if they televise these games, which I don't know how they're going to do that. So I know BT do show National League games, but I don't think anyone really picked up the League One and League Two side of things. So
they occasionally get a game on Sky.
Yeah.
I think there's if Sunderland were playing Portsmouth, it might be on Sky or something like that on a Saturday evening. But it's only I'm going to say the word bigger clubs, but I don't know whether that's the right word to use. But it's they're historically, they've been in the Premier League type teams.
Exactly. So yeah, well, obviously we hope that no team has to go under because of this, but hopefully they can get their games back on as soon as they can and start making some money. And obviously players who have taken a pay cut, fair play to them. It's not going to be easy for them, especially when you think probably the average Yeovil player is probably on no more than about £1,000. It's going to be incredibly difficult for them. So fair play to the players that have taken that cut.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so going on to you mentioned Birmingham City. I think it's players over £6,000 a week that are having to or being offered a 50% pay cut. So obviously that is still a lot of money, but I think they're going to be looking at I don't know how much if you're a reserve at Birmingham you'll be on, but I think it's going to affect across the board really. And I don't think they're going to be the only club to suffer as well. Obviously, Yeovil have asked their players to take a pay cut. I think and Yeovil are obviously quite I'd say a fairly wealthy club for the National League. I think you're looking at people that are on no more than sort of £25,000-30,000 a year contracts in that division, and a lot of people are going to be on half pay, or whether the government step in and the 80% applies to them, I don't know.
Yeah, well, we will see in the coming weeks. So we'll move on to the European competitions. So glad to tell everyone that Chelsea are still in the Champions League, and I am going to be using that until
further notice.
Yeah. So they have decided. Obviously, the games are going to be suspended anyway, but I know they've come out and said now that the final for both European competitions have been suspended as well. So this is the difficult one, because not only have teams, like Chelsea, it's just Chelsea and Man City, I guess, isn't it, from the Champions League side of things? Not only have they got league games to factor in, they've also got European games to look at as well. Now, this is how they're going to do this. I don't know. I can see the league being finished, but the Champions League, I think, is a whole different ball game. Yeah. The thing is, they've gone so far in the competitions now. Is it fair to cancel it, or do you think the teams that are still in it, and potentially the teams that have just been knocked out, do they play a mini league, like a league at the start of next year or something? I don't know.
Well, I think it's because obviously we're very up to date with the situation that's going on in this country, and we're trying to keep up to date with countries like Italy and Spain that have got it a lot worse. So if we can stem what's happening now, then great. We'll add domestic season, can get back underway, but it's not going to be the same for every country. And if that team has still got a club that's in European competition, it's going to be very difficult to be able to finish that. So I think I don't know whether a league is the right format, or maybe just a mini tournament, perhaps at a neutral ground. I don't know whether you could have, like a World Cup is held in one country, whether you can do that with the Champions League and just say, well, here's a country that's been fairly free of the virus. We're going to take the remaining teams there and just finish the tournament off over a period of 2 or 3 weeks. I think it's a minefield to get that one done. I personally can't see it being done either. I think they're going to have to, whether next season's Champions League is going to be just the remaining teams that are in this season's Champions League or not, I don't know. But I personally can't see that being finished anytime soon.
I think where with the league that you've got, you've almost in the Premier League, you've almost got an outright winner in Liverpool. With the Champions League, it's a lot harder, obviously, until you get to the actual final. But like you said, I think that they are more likely to scrap this season's Champions League than actually continue it. I think
the thing is, I think if we were still in the group stage of the Champions League, I think they wouldn't have a hesitation of scrapping it. But because we've now got to the knockout stages, it seems strange to do it, and that's why I think they're hesitating. But I can't see it. Yeah, I can't see a way around it, unfortunately.
The only other option I could think of was potentially the remaining teams that are left in the competition this season. I think that Chelsea should probably play Bayern Munich and Man City should play Real Madrid. And I think what would have been 8 teams that would have gone through. Maybe they get an automatic pass to the knockout for the knockouts for next year. They don't have to do they don't have to do the group stage. They can go straight into sort of February, March time.
Yeah,
I think that's maybe, and they could probably do the same with the Europa League as well. So. That is probably one way that they could look at it, but it would mean that Chelsea would probably have to play Bayern Munich. Obviously, Man City finished their game with Real Madrid, but because I'm not saying, I'm very aware that Chelsea lost 3-0 to Bayern Munich at home, so very aware that it would be very likely that we'd be in that situation anyway. But I think maybe giving them teams a free pass, I think could be an option.
I think that's a possibility. You've got to weigh up what's fair for everybody, I think. And maybe if there are countries that are struggling a little bit more than others, it's probably not fair to try and say we'll finish it as soon as possible. And maybe it's a good idea to look for the future and give them the benefit of being in the Champions League again next year.
But then you've also got the minefield of all the leagues potentially finishing at different times this season.
Yeah, and you've also, if Chelsea was to qualify for the Champions League through their league position, then who does their Champions League position go to if they've already qualified? That's going to take a lot of working out.
It's exactly like whenever these leagues get finished, when does the Champions League start? It just doesn't, for me, it doesn't seem like the Champions League is going to get underway until at least 2021 next year, after the Euros.
It just makes me feel very aware about how finely tuned our football season is, because it just takes one thing to knock it out. Like, for example, if everybody was back playing and could finish their season by July, but one country couldn't, that's the whole European tournament just completely out. It's you don't realise that until it actually happens.
You have other European countries whose season go from like March to September.
Yeah.
So
the Scandinavian teams and so on.
Oh God, I would not want to be the person going into work and having that land on your desk. Like, what are we going to do? Champions League, sat there like thinking, oh God, what are we going to do? It's although it's hard to say, I think the easiest thing to do now is just to cancel it. I think.
I think it is, or simulate it on Football Manager. Just get Football Manager to run a sim on the remaining teams and see what happens, and then they can be crowned the winner.
And I would scrap the both European competitions for whenever the next season is going to happen.
Yeah,
as well, and just start afresh from.
I think we need a
22.
restart.
It's crazy. It's just crazy, isn't it? So
Yeah.
another obviously competition that's been put back, which is one that we were all looking forward to in the summer, was the Euros.
Memories of 2018, Chris. Memories of the summer.
It's not coming home, Liv.
It's not. No, I know. It's so sad.
So obviously, the likelihood is that this is going to be held next year at some point. I would assume they are going to try to schedule it at the same sort of time frame as it would have been this season, which is odd because
it's going to put out the qualifiers for the World Cup as well. I'm not quite sure how they're going to work around that because we're effectively going to have 2 major tournaments in 3 years, which is going to be interesting to see how that works out.
So yeah, I think we're all a bit disappointed that the Euros aren't on because obviously we've all got, like you said, fond memories of 2 years ago.
I am disappointed it's not happening, of course, but on the other hand, I'm looking at the England squad and thinking another 12 months of Sancho starting for Dortmund or whoever if he moves. All of our young talents. Another 12 months of experience. Maybe Phil Foden starts. It might be a blessing in disguise.
Half the strike force is out as well. We got no Kane, no Rashford.
True.
So.
Yeah, we were all worried that Kane wasn't going to be fit, and now we don't really need to worry. So yes, there is that as well.
But yeah, like you said, it does run the risk of again messing up qualifiers for the World Cup as well.
Yeah.
So it's just not
never
good,
ending.
isn't it? Yeah. And obviously the World Cup's happening in the winter of 2022, is it? So
you'll really have 2.
It could be 18 months, really, couldn't it?
Yeah, you'll have 2 major tournaments in 18 months. That's
Wow.
Yeah, that's going to be quite a quick turnaround to get that in. I don't know how they're going to decide that.
I think they just have to make up a massive plan, aren't they, at this rate, of just what they're actually going to do.
Maybe this is all one big conspiracy to cancel the Qatar World Cup. Maybe everything will get delayed and pushed back to the point where they'll have to cancel.
They've gone this far.
Yeah, I think this is all FIFA's doing. And the Qatar World Cup will be cancelled. If it is too quick a turnaround, because I'm sure that this is going to obviously have an effect on other international tournaments, the Copa America and and all sorts. So I don't know what time of year that's played, but I have a feeling that is in the winter. Is it? I think it is.
Sometimes, yeah. I think
sometimes in the winter. So
the African Cup of Nations as well. That's normally held in like January, isn't it? So
yeah.
Ugh.
It's going to be a huge minefield to sort that one out, I think.
But, and you've got a feel for those players as well that sort of are coming up to the end of their sort of international career, and this is probably their potentially last sort of big major tournament for their country. And now, with the likelihood of it being suspended, I'm trying to think of a player, but I actually can't think of one that they are actually going to miss out on actually featuring at what was going to be their last tournament. So
yeah, probably only the goalkeepers for England, maybe Heaton. He's in his 30s now, but yeah, we've got such a young squad. But there will be obviously players for international teams that aren't England that will probably have been eyeing this as their last major tournament.
So so moving on to sort of the players now. I know we've had a discussion about contracts, which are going to be a tricky one because obviously, like you said earlier, if you've got a player that's out of contract on the 1st of July and the season is still going on, what is going to happen because Chelsea have signed Matt Ziyech from Ajax, and
Yeah,
he is due to join the club, I am assuming, on the 1st of July.
yeah.
So does he actually have to finish the domestic season for Ajax? Because I'm assuming that Chelsea wouldn't be able to register him if the season is still going on, so we wouldn't be able to do anything with him anyway.
Yeah, I think
So
you're
what
right. I
happens?
don't think Chelsea would be able to register him.
But we would be
I
paying.
guess, yeah, he'd still
Surely
be
we'd
an
start.
Ajax player, but you'd be paying his contract, I think.
God, that's not good.
No, it's not. It's going to be the same for
So,
everybody.
so
Yeah.
do you think that that's gonna be another minefield as well, isn't it? To think of if you're expected to join a new club and you can't, or does he leave Ajax and just join Chelsea and he just sits there
Just
and does
can't
nothing
play.
for? Do they, you know, uh, scrap the registration rule for until the season's finished? Obviously, if you can't actually go ahead and buy anyone, but if you're technically bought someone, you can have them join on the 1st of July and you can sort of get them to play. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know how fair that, because that's going to lead for a mad scramble for what could potentially be the last few games of the season, where if you're especially in a relegation battle and you think that one player might make a difference for the remaining 2 or 3 games, you're going to see sort of a tiny transfer window of about a week or two,
Yeah.
and everybody trying to buy everyone. Personally, I think they've got to finish the season. I think they've got to somehow make it that the contract is an automatic extension until the season is over. So although you've agreed to buy him on the 1st of July, I think all the FAs in European countries have to make it so that no transfers are done until the season is finished, and
Yeah.
effectively your contract ends not on a
So,
date, but when a season is over. And
yeah.
to be fair, going forward, I don't actually think that's a bad idea, because if something like this does happen again, which it may very well continue to do over the next few years, you don't know. I think it may be you maybe sign a contract in seasons rather than in dates, if that makes sense. So you sign a
Yeah.
contract for one whole season or 2 seasons or whatever, rather than saying it's a year. Um, yeah, I think that would probably solve the issue going forward if this was to keep on becoming a problem.
It's going to be.
It's going to be very tough for the teams. So obviously Chelsea have signed Ziyech, paid a lot of money for him, but it's going to be tough for the teams where almost their entire squad is made up of people on 1 year deals, because I think it's going to get to 1st of July. Maybe a 1 month extension is possible for all those players, but if it goes on any longer than that, I think you're looking at basically an entirely new squad for every team in League One and League Two for the last 5 games of the season or something like that. It's going to be really difficult for them, because they're obviously going to have to work extremely hard, and it's going to be financially difficult for them to do that. So I think that's going to be what if clubs do go under. I think that's going to be what kills them off.
Yeah, it's all up in the air, really, isn't it? At the
Unless
moment.
you play a youth team and maybe FA brings in laws to protect this kind of thing from happening between now and then, and says you have to retain a certain amount of players, and maybe give clubs the funding in order to do that, but make it fair, and yeah, try and do it as evenly as possible. But yeah, it's going to be very difficult. I mean, as you know, Chris, my second team at Cheltenham Town, I can't see how they're going to pay their players for what is going to be probably an 18-month or maybe even longer season. I just don't think they've got the financial capability to do that.
It's yeah, sad, isn't it, when you think about it?
Yes, a lot of teams could go under, but I
Uh,
do really hope that something good comes out of this. They maybe change the rules a little bit to help teams that are in League One and League Two and financially struggling. And
yeah,
you
well,
know,
I'm sure the government will. I'm sure that the rules will apply to football clubs as well, so they can pay their players.
And I want to end on
Yeah.
something positive as well with all this. When football does get back underway in a normal fashion, the atmosphere at the games is going to be something like we've never seen before, I think, because it's going to have been away
It's
for
really
so
different,
long.
isn't it? Yeah.
It's going to be massively different. It's going to be such a relief. So I think it'll be, once we do get back to normal, I think it's going to be as good as ever.
I was when you said that you had something positive to say, I was going to say I hope it's not Aston Villa's goal difference, because that would have been a negative.
Thanks, Chris.
Sorry.
Yeah, something positive. John
I,
McGinn will be back.
I had to get
Yeah.
to get one in there. I had to get one in there.
Thank you.
But obviously, have you got anything to say on the Villa situation at the moment? Just looking briefly, trying to find last time you won a game in the Premier League. It's 21st of
Ooh,
January.
yeah, I was going to say it must be a
Watford.
few months now.
So you've beaten. So the last sort of games that you've won were against Watford, Burnley, Norwich, and Newcastle.
Yeah, so teams in the bottom half, safely in the bottom half, which is why I sort of put together that idea of, a playoff with teams around
Yeah,
you,
because you knew you could be in this.
we've actually beaten a few of them, so yeah, it might give us a chance. But yeah, it's not a good situation at the moment. I hope, my heart obviously wants Villa to be in the Premier League, but my head is sort of saying we can't stay there through a technicality.
Manager.
I don't want to stay in the Premier League based on us deciding the season is void. And manager wise, the last couple of games, I've moved more to the Dean Smith out brigade rather than keeping him in. I don't know whether it's fair to sack him before the end of the season now with what's going on at the minute, but the annoying thing is, so the position I'm in at the minute is, if we go down and we keep Dean Smith, we've got a really good Championship manager who's got us promoted before, and that'll be great, but we don't want to go down in the first place, so I'd rather have someone with Premier League experience to try and keep us up. Then if they don't keep us up, then we're going to lose a manager and we're going to be right back to square one again. So it's quite a big gamble either way, I think. But I'd rather give ourselves as good a chance as possible and maybe hire someone in that. But there's not many people around at the moment. So yeah, I don't really know who. I couldn't pick a name of who I'd want to take over. So yeah.
Well, the EFL Cup final as well. You had a cup final.
We did, yeah. We didn't play badly. Did you watch it, Chris?
I watched it. I thought you played quite well. Second half, you were a lot better than what you were first half.
Yeah, first half we were a bit nervous, I think, and let them come on to us a little bit. But yeah, we had a chance to equalise at the end and hit the post. But I think the only thing I was hoping for was that we weren't going to get to a massive final and crumble like we did against Arsenal in the FA Cup in 2016. So to lose 2-1. And to actually give them a game, I thought was more than I expected, really, because everybody went into that game thinking, well, they beat us 6-1 a couple of weeks ago. So I think we were all sort of expecting a similar scoreline. But yeah, I was pleased with the performance, and I was obviously not too happy with the result. It would have been nice to have got a win, but more important things this season. So I would rather be runner-up in the Carabao Cup and stay in the league than win it and go down. So
yeah, just briefly I'll talk slightly about Chelsea as well. Had some good performances. I know that, apart from the Champions League game, which was terrible, some decent performances actually since the turn of the year. I know we lost to Man United as well in the league, but we beat Everton. Our last game was against Everton. We won 4-0 in that game. I thought we were really good then. Actually, it was something just seemed to click, and I'm not sure what it was, but and that came off the back of us beating Liverpool in the FA Cup as well, which again, I think a lot of people would have written us off in that game, but we did really, really well actually to get a result there.
I was a little bit worried for you when Abraham was injured, Chris, but Giroud seems to have come in and I mean, we know he's a good striker anyway, but he's been a huge difference for you.
But Willian has picked up as well in the last sort of month or so as well, and he's chipped in with a few goals. But yeah, it was going really well. So hopefully, when the season picks up again, we can continue. We are already 3 points ahead of Man United, so we do need to sort of buffer that gap a little bit. But I was pretty confident, actually, to be honest with you, after seeing us, beat Everton the way we did. I thought, yeah, we could. It could actually finish fourth. So, but we have got a few still tough games to come. I mean, we have got Liverpool away, which is going to be. Hopefully, they would have won the season by then, but who knows? Who knows?
They haven't got anything else left to play for though, so.
Well, yeah,
they've just got the league, and that is it. So maybe they'll be going for the record points total.
And they've lost now as well, I guess. So that's kind of the. So at least they're not going to go unbeaten all season. So.
Yeah, you said that with a heavy sigh.
That's one positive. So yeah, well, what's going to happen now? Do you think we just have to sit and wait until we hear from the FA? I guess.
I think we're going to have to.
But I don't think we're going to hear anything within at least the next month or so. I think it's going to be sort of when that deadline of the 30th of April comes up, see what the plan of action is. But
yeah, I think so. I think it's going to be a long one. I think it's going to be drawn out.
I think it's going to be very unlikely that they restart the season on the 30th of April. But it is one of those things, unfortunately, where we are just going to have to wait and see.
Maybe if we all listen to the government and stay indoors, maybe they'll be able to. So
stay safe.
Stay indoors, guys. Yeah, stay safe. Stay indoors. Give us our football back so we've actually got something to talk about.
Yeah. So well, that's it for this week, for this month maybe.
For this season. Who
I
knows?
don't know. I know we took a bit of a break before this all happened. I think it was sort of February time we did the last podcast. We just took some time off just to rethink a few things of maybe reshape the podcast a little bit, see what we can do with it. But we thought we'd come on and give our views on what's happening at the moment with sport, because obviously it's not just football that's affected. It's affected all sports around the world. Have you seen the clips of the WWE wrestling? Of them wrestling in front of no people?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did see that in front of an empty stadium. The trash talk just sounds horrendous without a crowd behind it.
It sounds echoey, doesn't it? It's really weird, really strange. So yeah, I think that's the strangest thing I've seen so far, actually, in all of the sports was them wrestling in front of no crowd. I was just thinking, like, what? And they were like doing their walk towards the ring, and I'm thinking, why are they even bothering? Just walk.
Yeah.
You're not, I know they're entertaining people like on TV and stuff, but it's just odd. But yeah,
without the atmosphere, it's nothing.
Exactly, and that's like when you watch a football game behind closed doors. You can actually hear the players. You can hear the ball being kicked around, which is odd, which is strange. But yeah. So we'll be back soon, but we'll keep everyone posted on social media what we're doing. But yeah, so thanks for agreeing to come on, Liam.
No problem.
And
thanks for having me again.
That's all right. Well, you're pretty much part of the team now, mate.
So
you can't go anywhere, because if you go, it is literally just me talking for an hour. So
I can't have that.
No one wants to hear that. But yeah, so we'll be back soon, and hopefully we can get some football underway. But yeah, we'll see you next time.